I mean, not completely empty, it's just his half is gone, all the hangers are pushed to one side perfectly aligned. It's so neat it looks like a wound. I can still smell his aftershave, that stupid, cheap sandalwood one he's used since college. God, it's hanging in the air like a ghost. I'm not crying, I feel like I should be, right? But my eyes are just dry. I keep tracing the line in the carpet where his shoe rack used to be. We didn't even have a fight. There was no screaming match, no final, dramatic blow up. He just wasn't here when I got home from work. He took his favorite sweaters and the jeans I hated and just vanished. How does a person do that? How do you just erase yourself from a life? We met in college. It's such a cliche, right? He was this quiet guy in the back of a history lecture, the one who actually did all the reading. I was not that. Reese is a good man. I need you to understand that. He's the kind of person who remembers your coffee order after meeting you once, who will spend an entire weekend helping a friend move without a single complaint. He's steady, solid. He restores ancient manuscripts for the university. I'm not kidding. His job is literally to spend all day in a silent, climate-controlled room with crumbling books and special glue, carefully putting history back together. He'd come home, hands smelling of old leather, and be genuinely excited about finding the perfect type of paper to restore a 16th century binding. It's noble, I guess. It's also incredibly quiet, and I'm not. I work in marketing for a tech startup. My world is loud. It's all about metrics, engagement, building a personal brand. It's about being seen. A few years ago, I got invited into this private online group for women in creative industries. It started out as a great place for networking, but over time it just morphed. It became this weird, unspoken competition. Who had the coolest apartment, the most ironic vacation, the most impressive partner? The other women's husbands were tech founders, surgeons, guys who ran their own investment firms. Their lives, or at least the versions they posted, were a highlight reel of Michelin star dinners and spontaneous trips to Copenhagen. It was all wrapped in this veneer of faux humility, you know. Like, another work trip, but at least the view from this infinity pool is okay, I guess. It was a performance, and I had Reese. My sweet, wonderful Reese, who thinks a fancy night out is trying a new pizza place and whose biggest ambition is to one day own a first edition copy of some obscure medieval text. He didn't understand my world of A/B testing and click-through rates, but God, he tried. He'd sit with me while I worked late, reading my campaign proposals. "Does this sound punchy enough, Reese?" I'd ask, and he'd squint at the screen and say, "It sounds very clever, Nova." He was the human equivalent of a warm, comfortable sweater. And I was trying to sell him to an audience that only valued leather jackets. The pressure was insane, you know? I felt so beige, so boring. My entire job is about creating a narrative, about making a product seem desirable. And I felt like my own life, our life, was a terrible product with no selling points. Every time I'd scroll through the group, I'd see these women with their sharp, witty commentary on everything, and their lives seemed so much more significant. I started to feel this desperate need to be interesting, to have a take. I needed a story, I needed some material. And the easiest material, the person I knew best, was right there next to me every night. It started so innocently. God, doesn't it always? It wasn't like I woke up one morning and decided to systematically dismantle my husband's self-esteem for internet clout. It was just a joke, it was a picture. One evening I was bored, scrolling through the group while Reese was happily absorbed in his own world looking for a book. He was standing in front of his bookshelf, wearing this ancient, faded Ramones t-shirt, the one with a hole in the armpit. His books were, as always, organized perfectly not by author or color, but by the Library of Congress classification system. He'd actually done it himself. I felt this little ugly spark of something, annoyance maybe. I snapped a picture, the sound of the fake shutter loud in the quiet room. He glanced over, smiled his gentle smile, and went back to his books. I crafted the caption with the care of a poet, spotted in its natural habitat. My husband, a man whose passion for punk rock is matched only by his passion for proper archival methods. I'm living with a sexy librarian. Send help or at least wine. My phone exploded, I'm not exaggerating. It was a flood of notifications, more than I'd ever gotten. It was a hit of dopamine, pure and uncut. Dozens of laughing emojis, comments like "OMG Nova, you're hilarious," and "This is my life too," and "At least he's organized." Jessica, the one with the surgeon husband and the perfect minimalist condo, commented, "Nova, you are a national treasure." A national treasure. Me, for the first time, I wasn't just the quiet marketing girl in the group. I was the funny one, the relatable one. It felt warm. It felt like I'd finally cracked the code. So I gave them more. It became a series. The Chronicles of Reese. It was easy. I posted a picture of the lunch he packed for himself every single day. 2 hard-boiled eggs, an apple, and a handful of almonds. Caption: My husband is in a passionate, long-term relationship with sensible nutrition. I, on the other hand, am having a torrid affair with the vending machine. That one got 50 likes in an hour. I posted about his movie nights. He loves old black and white films, the slower the better. One Friday, he put on some 3-hour Swedish film about a man contemplating a rock. He was completely engrossed, his face lit by the flickering screen. I was sitting right next to him, bathed in the blue light of my phone, typing. Date night. Reese says this is a masterpiece of existential dread. I say it's a masterpiece of making me want to drink bleach. Pray for me. He turned to me at one point, his eyes shining, and whispered, "Isn't this shot incredible?" I just mumbled MHM amazing without looking up because I was too busy replying to a comment that said, "Girl, you deserve a medal." It was an addiction. Every quiet, quirky, gentle thing about him became content. His bird-watching phase last spring, I turned it into a running gag about him being a 70-year-old man in a 32-year-old's body. The way he meticulously cleaned his sneakers with a toothbrush, I framed it as a symptom of a deep-seated psychological disorder. I was a comedian, and my husband's personality was my punchline. In Reese, he never said a word, not once. I knew he saw the posts. Sometimes I'd leave my laptop open on the couch and I'd see him walk past and his eyes would just linger on the screen for a second before he moved on. There was this one time I'd just posted about the sneaker cleaning. He came into the living room holding his phone. He opened his mouth and I saw it, the question, the hurt. My heart actually stopped for a second. I was ready for the confrontation. But then he just closed his mouth, shook his head slightly, and asked if I wanted tea. And I, in my infinite and catastrophic stupidity, took his silence as a green light. See, I told myself, he can't even be bothered, it's fine. I told myself he knew it was a performance, that he was in on the joke. But he wasn't in on the joke, he was the joke. His silence wasn't approval, it wasn't even tolerance. It was him just absorbing it, taking every little paper cut without making a sound, and I was too busy listening to the applause to hear him bleeding. Every comedian needs a closing bit, right? The big one, the one that brings the house down. Mine came about a month ago. The group was running a contest for Post of the Week. The winner would get a featured spot on the group's public-facing blog and a gift card to some ridiculously expensive skincare brand. It wasn't about the prize, it was about the title. I wanted it. God, I wanted it so bad. I wanted that validation, that little digital crown that said I was the cleverest, the sharpest, the best performer in our little circus. I just needed the right material, and then I found it. Reese has one thing that he's genuinely, deeply sensitive about. It's not his taste in music or his hobbies, it's his career path. Back in our early 20s, right after college, he poured every cent he had and all of his energy into opening a small, independent bookstore. It was his dream. He called it the dog-eared page. He curated every book, built the shelves himself, hosted poetry readings where maybe 5 people showed up. It was a beautiful little place, smelled of old paper and fresh coffee, and it failed miserably. It lasted about 18 months before he had to declare bankruptcy. It broke him. I was there. I held him while he cried, telling him it wasn't his fault, that the market was just brutal. He eventually found his footing with the manuscript restoration job. It was stable, it used his skills, but it was always a retreat. It was Plan B. The failure of that bookstore is the great wound of his adult life. He never ever talks about it. It's a locked room inside of him, and I had the only key. I knew all of this. I knew it was his red line, the one place you just didn't go, and I went there. I wrote a long, elaborate post. I spent hours on it, crafting every sentence to sound both witty and profound. I titled it, "What It's Like Being Married to a Man with Zero Ambition." I can't even believe I'm typing this now. It feels like confessing to a murder. I wrote about how liberating it was to be with someone who was content with his small pond. I spun his quiet, stable job not as a respectable profession, but as a lack of drive. I made him sound like a pet, a comfortable, low-maintenance accessory to my much more interesting life. And then the finale, I brought up the bookstore. I didn't frame it as a tragedy. No, I was much more clever, much more cruel than that. I framed it as a good thing. I wrote, he tried the whole hustle culture thing once with a little bookstore that went belly up. And honestly, it was the best thing that ever happened to him. It taught him his limits. It taught him that not everyone is meant to be a CEO, and that's okay. Some people are just meant to be happy, and I'm so proud that I'm with a man who is brave enough to accept that. I read that line back to myself and felt a sick thrill. It was perfect. It was condescending, self-congratulatory, and it made me sound like this wise, evolved woman who had graciously accepted her husband's mediocrity. I was positioning his deepest failure as a charming little anecdote in the story of my own enlightenment. I took his trauma and turned it into a prop. I hit and post. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. It was my magnum opus of marital humiliation. The likes and comments flooded in faster than ever before. So brave of you to share this, Nova. This is such an important perspective. You have such a healthy way of looking at your relationship. I won post of the week. They told me my entry was being prepped for the public blog. For a few hours, I was high on it. I was the queen of the group. I had finally, truly arrived. I remember sitting on the couch, phone glowing in my hand, feeling this incredible rush of victory. I had done it. I was seen. I was important. That night, Reese came home from work. I heard his keys in the door, the familiar sound of him dropping his bag by the entrance. I was still buzzing from my online victory, feeling generous. I called out from the kitchen, "Hey, you. How was your day?" Silence. Usually he'd call back, "Fine, just tired. You?" But there was nothing, just the sound of his footsteps on the hardwood floor, stopping in the doorway of the living room. I walked out, wiping my hands on a dish towel, a smile still plastered on my face. "I was thinking we could order Thai tonight, my treat," I started to say, and then I saw his face. And my smile just died. He was holding his phone. My post was on the screen. He wasn't angry. He wasn't crying. It was something so much worse. His face was just empty. All the light was gone from his eyes. It was like looking at a stranger, a man made of ash. He just stood there in the middle of the room looking at me, and in that moment I knew. I knew I had gone too far. The sick thrill I'd felt all day curdled into pure, cold dread in my stomach. "Reese," I said, my voice barely a whisper. It was a joke. "It's for the group, they have this dark sense of humor you wouldn't." My words trailed off. They sounded so pathetic, so hollow. He didn't say anything. He just looked at me, and then he looked down at his phone and then back at me. He gave this tiny, almost imperceptible shake of his head. It wasn't a gesture of disagreement. It was a gesture of finality, of surrender. It was the look of a man who had finally realized he couldn't absorb any more cuts. He had run out of room. He turned and walked into our bedroom. I followed him, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Reese, talk to me, please. Yell at me, scream at me, do something." He didn't. He just opened his side of the closet and started taking out a duffel bag. He moved with this calm, detached efficiency that terrified me. He packed a few shirts, some socks, his toothbrush. He didn't say a word. The silence was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. It was screaming. It was telling me, "It's over, it's done, you broke it." The next morning, I woke up alone. The other side of the bed was cold. I thought maybe he just slept on the couch, maybe he just needed space. I went to work, my whole day a blur of anxiety. I kept checking my phone. No calls, no texts. I told myself he was just cooling off. He'd be home tonight and we would have the fight we should have had last night, and it would be awful, but we would get through it. When I got home, the first thing I noticed was the quiet. It was a different kind of quiet. It was an empty quiet. And then I saw it, the gap on the bookshelf where his favorite authors used to be. The empty space on the bathroom counter. And finally, I walked into the bedroom and opened the closet, and I saw his half, gone, no note, no final angry text. Just a clean, silent, brutal amputation. He hadn't just left, he had excised himself. Panic, real, ugly, clawing panic. For the first hour, I just ran around the apartment, checking rooms as if he might be hiding under the bed. It was insane. Then the denial kicked in. This was a dramatic gesture. He was making a point. He was at his friend Owen's place, and he'd be back tomorrow after I'd had a good scare. So I did what any rational, terrified person would do. I called my friends, my sisters, the women from the group. I called Jessica first, the national treasure one. I was hysterical, crying so hard I could barely speak. "He's gone, Jess," I sobbed into the phone. "Reese is gone. He packed a bag and just left." There was a pause on the other end of the lines. It was just a second too long. "Oh my God, Nova," she said, but her voice was weird. It was careful. "That's awful. What happened?" "I don't know," I lied, the words tasting like poisons. "We didn't even fight, he just disappeared." Another pause. "Oh, well, I'm sure he just needs some space. Men do that, he'll be back." Her tone was the one you use on a frantic stranger at the supermarket. Polite, distant, and desperate to get off the phone. There was no, "I'm coming over right now," no, "what can I do?" Just platitudes. It was the same with the others. I called two more of my closest confidants from the group. They all gave me the same awkward, stilted sympathy. They'd listen to me cry, murmur things like, "That's so tough," and then find an excuse to hang up. "Oh, I've got a work call I have to jump on. The baby's crying, gotta go." No one asked about the post, no one mentioned it, but it was there hanging between us in the silence, they knew. Of course they knew, they had all liked it, they had all commented, they had cheered me on, and now that the consequences had arrived, they wanted nothing to do with it. I wasn't funny, relatable Nova anymore. I was a mess, I was drama, I had become bad content. And just like that, the audience had left the theater, it's been a month. A month of sleeping in the dead center of the bed and waking up to the crushing silence. A month of my phone never lighting up with his name. I've been blocked everywhere. His phone goes straight to voicemail. His social media profiles have vanished from my view. I am a ghost to him, so I became a ghost in return. I made a fake Instagram account. No profile picture, a random string of numbers for a name. It's pathetic, I know, God, I know, but it's all I have. From there, I can see him. Or at least I can see the edges of his new life. I can't see his profile, he must have it set to private, but I can see his friends. Owen's, Maria's. I spend hours, literal hours, scrolling through their feeds, looking for a glimpse of him in the background of a photo, a tag, and a story. Last night I found one. Owen posted a picture. A group of them went hiking somewhere beautiful, all green trees and blue sky. They're all smiling, squinting in the sun. And there in the back of the group is Reese. He's wearing that stupid Ramon's t-shirt, the one that started it all. He's thinner maybe, but he's smiling, and it's not his polite, gentle smile, it's a real one. A big, happy, unburdened grin that reaches his eyes, the kind of smile I haven't seen on his face in years. Owen's caption was a knife. Great day on the trail. So good to see this guy smiling again. Congrats on the new chapter, Reese. A new chapter, I just stared at the picture, at his happy face until the pixels blurred. All those likes, all those witty comments, all that validation I chased so desperately, it all felt like ashes in my mouth. I won the contest, I got the gift card. I was the queen of a kingdom of fools for a day, and in exchange, I gave up this. I gave up the man who would have spent his whole life making sure I was happy if only I hadn't been so busy telling the world how unhappy he made me. I closed my phone, the apartment was dark. The only thing I could see was the reflection of my own face on the blank screen and the giant, gaping shadow of the empty half of the closet behind me.